We defined what an isosceles triangle was before. And we're going to define it again, and then we're going to talk about some of the rules that come with isosceles triangles. So, the definition of an isosceles triangle, remember that it was a triangle with two congruent sides. And so remember, if you have any triangle that has two sides that are equal, we can signify that the sides are equal by putting these two little marks, and then that's going to become an isosceles triangle. Let's talk about some of the vocabulary now. So isosceles triangles, once again, they have two congruent sides, and those two congruent sides are going to be called the legs. Okay. Now, anytime you stand up, like so, if you spread your legs a little bit apart, okay, because your legs are the same size, when you stand apart like that, you make this triangle. Okay, you're always going to form an isosceles triangle with the floor. And so those legs are going to be the two parts that are equal. So whenever you see that, just think about it that way. Your two legs are the ones that are equal. So those are your legs. Okay? That floor down there, the non-congruent side, is going to be called the base. Okay? So not always is it going to be the base going to be the bottom. So it might be rotated or flipped around or some type of upside down. But the one that's not equal, it's going to be called the base. The angle between the two legs is going to be called the vertex angle. Okay, so we're talking about this angle A up here. This is the angle that is in between the two legs, so that's going to be called your vertex angle. And then the other two angles that are next to the base are going to be called the base angles. And so those two angles then are the base angles. Now let's talk about, there's only two rules here, and they're kind of related to each other. They're pretty simple, and we'll be done. Alright, so the first rule is called the base angles theorem, saying that if two sides of a triangle are congruent, then the angles opposite of those sides are going to be congruent as well. Okay, so basically, once again, we have these two sides here. And if you look at side AB on the left, okay, well, the angle opposite of this side will equal to the angle opposite of this other side on the right. Okay? But the angle opposite of this left side BA is going to be that one right there. Okay? So that angle is going to equal to the side opposite of side AC. And the angle opposite, remember, opposite means looking the other on the away from it, on the opposite side, would be angle B there. Base angles are congruent in all isosceles triangles. Okay, so anytime you see an isosceles triangle, not only will two sides always be equal, but every single isosceles triangle also have two congruent angles. The converse of the base angles theorem is basically the same thing, but vice versa as the last theorem. And it's saying that if you have two angles of a triangle that are congruent, then the sides opposite those angles must also be congruent. Okay, so like if you take for example B here, this angle is equal to angle C, and if two angles are congruent, then those opposite sides are going to be congruent. So like for example, the side opposite of angle B would be side AC, and the side opposite of angle C is going to be side AB. And so basically it's saying that if two angles are congruent, then it's an isosceles. Okay, and and vice versa. If two sides are equal, two angles are equal, and two angles are equal, then two sides are equal. So if two things are equal, either sides or angles, it's going to be isosceles. To find the value of x and y. Okay, so what do we know? Well, this is an isosceles triangle, and if two sides are equal, then we know that the angles opposite from them, these two angles, are going to be equal. So if that's 50 up there, the bottom here will also be 50. And now, what do I know about the angles of a triangle? All three angles have to add up to 180. Okay, but first let's write down y equals to 50. And then I also know that if I add x plus these two angles, 50 and 50, they have to add up to 180. Okay. Now if I combine these two, which are like terms, I get 100. And then I can subtract 100 from both sides. This will cancel, and I get that x equals to 180 minus 100 is going to be 80. and that's the measure of x. Okay, so there we go. We found x and we found y being 50 and 80. On the right side here, once again, if two sides are equal, then their angles opposite. So this one's opposite of that side, and then this one's opposite of that side. Those two angles have to be equal. Now I get that 10x equals to 8x plus 8. And then I can solve for x. I need to move this 8x to the left side here by subtracting 8x so that I'm able to bring those like terms together. 10x minus 8x will give you 2x when you combine them. And I get x equals 8 afterwards. Then I can divide by 2 and divide by 2. This will cancel and I get that x equals 2, 4. Now to find y, I do need to know the measure of this angle here and to know the measure of the bottom angle. So what I want to do is I'm going to plug in 4 here. 10 times 4 is 40. I'm also going to plug in 4 here. 8 times 4 is 32. And 32 plus 8 is going to be 40 as well. And so those angles have to be equal. Okay, if I were to plug in 4 for both of these and I get different measures, then I know I did something wrong with the algebra. But moving on to y here, I know that y plus 40 plus the other 40, remember all three angles have to add up to 180. And then if I combine like terms, 40 plus 40 there is 80. Then I can subtract 80 from both sides. This will cancel. And I get that y is equal to 100. Okay. And there's my answer. So x is 4 and y is 100. And that concludes our lesson on isosceles triangles.